Hello! Today I'm going to go through task number 5 so that you guys have an idea of what to cover for task number 5 and how to make the end of this particular course a little bit easier on yourself. So in the Module 5 folder in BB Learn, there is the task file, so I already have it open over here. So task number 5, especially based on the readings from this particular module, has to do with new media and composition. So you need to create a multimodal presentation that shows an argument and that demonstrates it for a very particular audience. What I highly recommend for this one is take a small portion of an argument from your final paper, so you've already done the research, and you make that into a multimodal presentation. So you make a brochure, you make a website, you make a blog, you make a Prezi presentation, you make an infographic, you make a word cloud, whatever it is you think that you need for that particular idea, pull it from your final paper so that the secondary research is already done. Keep in mind that task number 5 wants a separate audience, so you're going to have to shift the argument slightly because your paper is geared towards me and just a big academic audience, but the multimodal project doesn't need to be, or depending on how you want to present it, it should be geared towards an audience that's a little bit more appropriate. Okay, so your goal for task number 5 is to use multimodality to show your audience that you can address different audience needs by incorporating written, visual, and/or auditory elements into your presentation. This is everything that a roll of ball and shepherd really talk about. To be a 21st century learner, these are the things that we already know how to do, or that we at least have to understand how to read to effectively use the internet. So now how do we also become producers or writers or creators or authors of these pieces as well? Your presentation will be based on your final paper, showing your audience what your argument was and how you supported your argument. So you'll definitely pull it from your final paper. I'm going to tell you this over and over. You guys are going to be so sick of it. You can choose one section of your final paper, or you can present on the overall paper. I don't recommend presenting on the overall paper, but you can if you really want to bite that off. Pick a small part. Pick a small part and gear it towards a specific audience. Make your lives easier. You have to write a big paper for me. Okay. Requirements of an effective written presentation. Analyze your audience. You obviously need to know who it is you're talking to and what their expectations for multimodal presentation are. You then want to pick the tool that will most appropriately or most effectively present the argument that you want to present to that particular audience. So what we want to understand from a roll of ball and shepherd, and what your task number 5 really needs to show, is that tools don't drive the decisions that we make. The decisions about learning, the decisions about argument presentation, the decisions about audience, those influence the tool selection, and then we make the tool selection appropriate once we figured out audience, argument, and context. So keep in mind how to rhetorically analyze, that's what this whole class is about, your audience so that you select the right tool for your purposes. Determine the goal of your presentation and articulate your purpose clearly. Based on your audience analysis and your goal for the presentation, decide on the presentation tool you will use. So you can see how far into this process we got before we're like, and let's pick a tool. You need to do the same thing. Don't pick the tool first. Develop appropriate support material to appeal to your audience. Make sure that every item supports the goal of your presentation. So you need to basically effectively use the tool to support your argument in the way that the tool provides. Understand and analyze the context to understand the broader issues underlying your final paper. So who are you telling this to, and what is it they need to know to contextualize this small piece of your argument? Organize the material so that your audience can follow your points, and choose visuals to enhance your purpose and your meaning. So obviously all of this needs to then come together. The rhetorical choices you make in design are rhetorical choices. That's what a roll of ball and shepherd are getting at. We learn to read and we learn to write not just traditional text. The entire screen, the entire page, the particular location of my face in this video is a rhetorical decision. How are you going to pay attention to all of the information, and how are you going to pay attention to me without me being too distracting? Or so that I interact with the information in a very specific way. Or it depends on the tool. So you really need to explore what the affordances are and how the affordances help your argument. That's the goal of this final task. Then you're going to organize your presentation. So you need to focus on an aspect of your final paper. Once again, we're telling you this. And you need to make it relevant to your audience, and it needs to be addressed in the time constraints, so 5 to 7 minutes. So nothing like my videos, but that's something that you can make if you choose to. Choose your focus based on how your knowledge and interests intersect with the audience interests. So again, rhetorically analyze before you start selecting tools, bringing your content from your paper into that particular rhetorical analysis, and then select a tool that can encompass that entire argument and what it is that you want to get across to your audience. Generally, your presentation should include the following using multimodality for presenting your points: title page, introduction, research findings, current need, paper results, conclusion. You can see in here with the research findings, current need, results, and conclusion that we're bringing Bitzer's rhetorical situation with exigence, audience, and constraints from Smith's chapter 1 into our rhetorical analysis of the context to understand how the tool can then effectively argue as well as our content can effectively argue. So depending on what you're doing, a PowerPoint presentation that stands alone by itself is probably not going to be that effective. So a PowerPoint presentation maybe mixed with a video could be more effective depending on who your audience is. If you want high schoolers to watch your information or to go through your information, a standalone prezi is not very effective. An infographic might be, as long as the purpose is very clear, because students want to know, why do I need this? If I don't have to do extra work, I'm not going to. And this is true of not just high school students, but students across the board. If I don't have to do extra work, I'm not going to. So you better get the purpose out there. That's what you want to think about when you're rhetorically analyzing your situation. So don't just think about research findings, current need, paper results, and conclusions. Those are really, really important, but also really consider Bitzer's exigence, audience, and constraints. How can you make the purpose really clear and important to the people who are reading or interacting with the multimodal presentation that you put together? We're saying length, 8 to 12 slides. That one's kind of up to you. It's going to depend on the tool. Again, it's going to depend on what you need to do. If you're going to create an infographic and you're going to create it for a high school setting, make sure you get the purpose early and often, so that if it's really lengthy, which it might be depending on the amount of information you're trying to convey to those high schoolers, they're reminded over and over again, here's the information you need to know and here's the why. Here's the so what, which is really important for rhetoric. Why is this important to you? Why do you need to pay attention to this, and how do I make it more meaningful to you? Then you'll include a cover letter for task number 5. So it's going to be a one-page cover letter. What points are you making most successfully? What elements did you include most successfully? What were your biggest problems? Creating the presentation, obviously this is going to be, if you're exploring a new tool, the very steep learning curve of learning a new tool. If you're using one you've used previously but you haven't used extensively, there's still a learning curve. And allow enough time, because you're going to be writing your final paper and you're going to be creating this. To create this particular task successfully, you're going to need a large portion of your final paper written first. So make sure that you guys are working on all of this. Work early, work often, write every day. That's what we always say. That's what we do too. So what are your biggest problems? Yes, time management, I understand that. Yes, learning curves. Also talk about how you're analyzing context and how you're analyzing the rhetorical situation as part of your problems. And then what grade would you give yourself? Save these, upload them to BB Learn, and then you'll be all set with task number 5. If you guys have any questions about this task or you're having difficulty finding a tool, let me know. You can always send me a tweet or you can send me an email. I'll see you guys online.